And we've got locked and loaded phone lines today, as always. Kevin Miller in the morning. We want to hear from you. Join the conversation now, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We'll ask Brian, Pete, and Ben to hang on. We're going to get to you very, very soon. But joining us now, live from CPAC, our great friend Megan Barth from ReaganBabe.com. Megan, good to have you with us.
Thanks, Kevin. Good to be here.
So CPAC, for those of us west of the Great River, what's it like being in enemy territory?
Well, I enjoy being in enemy territory. I think that if you're not making enemies, you're not doing something right. But this is my 10th CPAC, so I'm quite, I guess, the veteran.
Indeed. Now, the president's set to speak. The vice president has spoken. Of course, a little different CPAC. When we gear up towards the presidential campaign, we have all the contenders, but I hear that socialism, the defense against socialism, is a big topic point.
Well, no, absolutely. And I think that that's really going to be the centerpiece outside of immigration and abortion on demand of Trump's campaign. When you see what's happening to the Democrat Party, but it's something I've always said that even when I started my blog 4 years ago, my very first piece was Democrats, they are all socialists now. And that was a Time magazine cover, if you remember. It was like, are we all socialists now, or something to that effect when Barack Obama was elected. So I've always said that the fight has been between not necessarily Republicans and Democrats or red or blue. It's between socialism and capitalism. This has been the age-old fight, and it's been a historical fight. And now we see exactly where the Democrats are going, is they're going so far left. But when you look at the Democrat policies and when you look at the history of the Democrat Party, they've always been pretty radical. They've just not necessarily, they've always posed as moderate. Their incrementalism march towards socialism is well documented. They have always looked at the expansion of government at the expense of the individual. And so all of their policies reflect this. And so now we've got outward radicals, anti-Semites, communists, socialists in the Democrat Party. And you have to ask yourself after a while, how is it that radical socialists and Marxists and communists and anti-Semites and terrorist sympathizers, how is it they always find a home in the Democrat Party?
And of course, well, let me hit you with this one. What do you make of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? I mean, she gets the attention, but is it really resonating with people that matter? I mean, yes, she's got a lot of followers on social media. I understand that's a currency, but is she just more of a sizzle than steak?
Is she a fake? Is that what you said? I'm sorry.
Sizzle than steak. I'm sorry.
Okay. I don't think that we should underestimate her. Now, she only got about 80,000 votes, but with that said, she is a manufactured darling of the left, and she also is a media darling. She's getting a lot of press, much like Trump did when he was campaigning. And so what she's doing through all of this press, and it's deliberate, the press coverage is deliberate, as well as her positions, is she's mainstreaming communism. She's mainstreaming socialism. And so she's making it more palatable specifically for her age group, the millennial age group. And we already know that millennials think that socialism is awesome, even though they've never lived under it. And so this is just part of the indoctrination. And instead of making socialism so scary, she's actually making it palatable.
Our great friend Megan Barth joining us from ReaganBabe.com on KIDO Talk Radio. She's live at CPAC. Sorry to interrupt you, Megan. It's that pause. I have the same problem. I pause and then people jump in, but my apologies. So,
oh no, that's okay.
Here we go. Another Kevin Miller softball. Michael Cohen sings the blues. Your thoughts, and how did it resonate at CPAC?
Well, I have to tell you, I was flying in late last night, and as we were taking off from Houston, the the flight attendant said something like, "We know it's hot in here, and you're probably sweating more than Michael Cohen in a lie detector test." So I think it resonated everywhere. But we know who Michael Cohen is, and we know who the Democrats are, and who better to be the voice and the face of the Democrats than a convicted felon. This was nothing more than political theater. And for Elijah Cummings and Adam Schiff to coordinate this with Lanny Davis, the Clinton fixer, this was a complete rehearsed and choreographed and scripted meeting, if you will, or a hearing. It was interesting to listen to Michael Cohen rattle off what he knows about Trump, and the very first thing he says is, he's a racist. Oh, well, now that a convicted felon has called Donald Trump a racist after the Democrats have been calling Donald Trump a racist for 3 years, I totally believe it now. It was a total joke. And for anybody to have bought that Academy Award-winning performance, much like the Jussie Smollett performance, this is just a history of the Democrats. When you look at the politics of personal destruction, they try to do it to Clarence Thomas. The WAPO ganged up on the Covington Catholic boys as well as everybody else. They tried to do it to Brett Kavanaugh. Hillary Clinton used her henchmen to do it to Monica Lewinsky and all of Bill Clinton's victims. She dragged them through the mud publicly. She smeared them. And then they also did it to, did I mention Clarence Thomas? Yes. So when you look at the history of the Democrat Party, they cannot argue over policy. They do not want to debate policy. They do not want to talk about open borders that they want. They don't want to talk about abortion on demand or killing a baby if it survives abortion. They do not want to talk about socialism. So they default to basically slinging mud and the politics of personal destruction. And so this is just your typical playbook, your typical pattern of the Democrats.
Megan Barth, we appreciate you. Safe travels home to the West. ReaganBabe.com. Take care.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you. There we have it, our friend Megan Barth. More of your phone calls. If you're just tuning in, we were covering the story concerning the alleged rape, the alleged gang rape in Kuna, and asking the situation of refugees in Idaho, refugees in America. Getting your thoughts at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Pete in Mountain Home. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning, Kevin. What happened there in Kuna is, to me, there's a wider concern that American women need to be aware of. You look at what's going on in Europe and Germany, Sweden, and other places, and many of these refugees come from Muslim cultures where women are basically, if you are not a daughter or a wife or otherwise controlled by a man, you are considered fair prey. You are a loose woman. And the woman who had apparently consensual sex with one man, as far as that sort of culture goes, that means you're a prostitute. And it doesn't matter how many men then have sex with you. And that's and how you dress, if in a provocative manner, quote unquote, and all the values that we have gotten well past in this country, where a woman has the right to decide what she wears and who she is going with. That's not acceptable in many Muslim cultures, and I think that's something that the feminist movement in this country just sort of ignores.
Well, I would agree with you on that, and let's make sure we say this: people are innocent until proven guilty in America. But and again, we're hearing from the prosecutor side of the story. You have one suspect met a girl on Snapchat. He drove to Kuna. They had relations. The alleged victim said stop. He didn't. And then they were joined by several other people that allegedly gang raped this young girl. We don't know how old the victim is. The victim is 18 years old. Here we have it. And here's something that is very concerning. According to published reports, the prosecutor said the rape happened February 7th. after Lambello and the 18-year-old victim communicated over Snapchat and agreed to meet up. The pair had not met up before Snapchat, according to prosecutors. And then we have people in the courtroom. Now, I don't know if you can read the Snapchat, how you don't know English, but a Swahili translator interpreted for the defendants during the hearing. All three came from Tanzania. And if you don't know English, what are you doing on Snapchat and meeting someone that you have nothing in common with, again, according to the sources that we have here? Yeah,
I'm pretty sure the woman involved in Snapchat probably does not have a Swahili translation thing built into it. Wild guess.
Right. And this just shows you, again, the type of society that we're living in. If this is happening and, you know, the idea when someone says no, but even to agree to have relations with someone, Pete, without even knowing them, we need a lot more prayer and a lot more penance in our society today, sir.
Yeah, we have pretty well just trashed the entire Ten Commandments in this country, it would appear. And you know, this is when you take a society and you get rid of its morals. This is where it goes. I'm sorry, but
right.
There's a reason why society develops rules over thousands of years, and when you decide, well, those rules no longer apply, you better not be surprised by what happens to you.
Pete, thank you for listening to KIDO Talk Radio.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Before we get to Brian in Nampa, Ben in Eagle has been very patient. He says Tea Party Bob is wrong. Good morning, Ben.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Good. We've got some disagreement here. That's always welcomed.
Well, sure. I mean, great show this morning, first of all. But I was just listening on the way into work this morning. And, Tea Party Bob mentioned that these developers and so forth, they don't pay their fair share on utilities and whatnot. And my point being here is I remember hearing Barack Hussein Obama say that, well, you didn't build that. That's a famous quote. And I never thought I'd hear a Tea Party guy align his arena of ideas with Barack Hussein Obama in that regard. Because I can tell you just on a business standpoint, the development community, whether it's residential, commercial, or otherwise, they pay a tremendous amount of money to extend city utility services to those pieces of property that they're developing. And it's not free, and it doesn't show up from nowhere. And not only that, but the permits, all of the permits and the fees that go into getting a building out of the ground or a house, that's the city's responsibility to assess that to the developer or the builder. And so I just wanted to point that out, that it's a really slippery slope to do an us and them comparison when it comes to the dollars of infrastructure. The other thing, you had another caller talking about how we meaning tax base, shouldn't be subsidizing growth. And again, I love your callers. I love this show. But I was like dumbfounded that is so similar to the Congresswoman from New York boasting about how the Amazon deal got derailed, and how the state of New York just saved $3 billion of tax revenue because they didn't have a deal with Amazon any longer. But that is so 180 degrees out of phase with the reality that state lost, what, $24 billion? I don't know the exact numbers. It doesn't matter. But the point being is it's a misunderstanding that when a city or a county or a state incentivizes growth, that is to kickstart the economic engine in the area that increases tax revenue. And so I think Idaho in particular has a great opportunity to grow smart, and that's by putting good people in these decision-making, these roles. For example, like another caller, maybe it was the same caller, was talking about how we need these direct votes for projects in the city of Boise. I'm not a voter in the city of Boise, so I don't have a horse in this race. But to that point, that's not what a representative republic does. And I think that's a fundamental misunderstanding by one of your callers, that we actually vote people into those positions to do our bidding, and hopefully they make good decisions. And so if we stop the process and say, well, just because I disagree with whatever the initiative or the project, and we all need to vote, nothing would ever get done. That's a direct democracy, and our country is founded on a representative republic. So I just wanted to point those out. Love the show. Love your callers. I wish I could listen more often, but I wanted to get your thoughts on those 3 points as well.
Well, that was Hank, and that was all of our callers. There's a battle going on, and, having gotten close to a few developers, the impact fees are high these days. I think people their jaws would drop if they understood the amount of money that a developer has to come up with unfunded before a project can even start. No, I would agree with you on that. And I'm a big fan of incentives and initiatives. I saw what it did to a state like Alabama and Mississippi and South Carolina with the auto industry. It's got to be smart, but I think a public-private partnership is the way to go. Ben, thank you. Call in anytime. We appreciate you, brother.
Hey, man, have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben in Eagle joining us on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Brian.
Hey, Kevin. Remember a couple of days ago you were talking about open carry, and a guy wrote you a letter and said, why are the people of Idaho paranoid?
Right.
I have to define a term. The fist of the Lord. That's what John Browning called the 1911. Okay? So let's see. An 18-year-old woman gets raped. You think the fist of the Lord would have helped her? Yeah.
Right.
I have stopped 2 rapes, one in Texas and one in Boise, Idaho, with a handgun in my hand. I never pulled the trigger. Just showing it stopped the rape. Now, number 2, remember that guy in Boise that stabbed that kid and killed him at that party? Do you think the fist of the Lord would have helped in that situation?
Yes.
Yeah. So apparently in Idaho, we're not paranoid enough.
Well, and here you have this strange man, Timmy Kenner, running around, who has been declared incompetent, mentally incompetent to stand trial, who should get the death penalty. And, everybody just kind of didn't, nobody called the cops on him. I'll tell you, I had thought of you last night. I had a truck about 8:30 outside my house last night. And I'm sitting there watching this guy, and I live in a cul-de-sac, and I'm thinking, what would Brian do? And, you've got to be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, and John Browning's dad, Jonathan, was the first one that developed basically a box magazine. You know what America calls him? The father of fully automatic. Now, that's a nice little Mormon boy out of Idaho. How do I know that? I'm related to his mother, a Clark.
Brian,
so we already have all the answers. We just got to stick to them.
Brian, thank you for the call.
You bet.
All right. Bye-bye. Much more coming up. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Nothing like a little Blondie in the morning. Don't know who Blondie is? True believers, Google it. Anyway, by the way, if you're looking for something to do tonight, Holy Apostles Church in Meridian, Chinden and Meridian Road, they have their pre-Lenten festival. It is wonderful. It's you got the food, you get the tickets, the kids. So if you're in that Meridian, Star, Eagle, Boise, Nampa, Kuna, all over the Treasure Valley, very easy to get to. It is their festival. Of course, other people call it carnivals. And if you're there between 7:30 and 9, stop by the prize booth. That's right. I'll be giving out the prize to the children's, and make sure the children's have the proper number of tickets. It's one of the highlights of the year. That's at Holy Apostles Church, their festival. You can check out the details there on Facebook. Traffic and weather together, 107.5 FM, 580 AM.
This Channel 7's Eric Gebhardt.
All right. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's do this. Let's get you informed, updated, and then we'll hear what you have to say about the news that impacts you right here on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, your home for Fox News on the radio. Don't forget Sean Hannity this afternoon beginning at 3 p.m. Then it is Lars Larson till 9. Of course, when you hear Fox News on the radio, you're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM. And joining us now, Fox News Radio's Jared Halpern from Capitol Hill. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So we've got more and more issues or maybe non-issues with the national emergency declaration?
Well, I mean, I think the issue for the president is he's going to have to veto a resolution that terminates the resolution. The House obviously this week passed that termination bill, or resolution, I should say, did so with 13 Republicans voting with Democrats, but not enough to override a veto in the Senate, which will take it up, we think, in the next week or two. There are, we believe, 50 votes as it stands right now, assuming every Democrat votes in favor of this resolution to terminate the national emergency. There are 3 Senate Republicans who have publicly said that they will vote yes to terminate, and there are many others who are hinting they could as well. The latest was Lamar Alexander, Republican of Tennessee, who yesterday on the floor of the Senate outlined his concerns with the national emergency and then urged the White House lawyers to go back and take this time before a Senate vote to reevaluate other money that is available, he believes, to them to what he says avoid and prevent this route that they're taking. And it sounds like if that does not happen, then you would have potentially Lamar Alexander then becoming the 4th Republican, and that would be enough to send this to the president's desk. Again, we don't think it's going to get through the Senate with a veto override majority, but President Trump has never had to veto anything as he's as president. This would be the first, and it would be on a bipartisan rebuke of his authority.
Well, sooner or later, the vetoes happen. You, as a grizzled veteran of Washington, I think you'd agree with that.
They do, and, they happen for, sometimes it takes, I think, I was looking at the stats on this, I don't think President Bush had a veto in his first term. President Obama had one early in his presidency, which was interesting because early in his presidency, Democrats had the majority in both the House and Senate. And one of the later vetoes that President Obama had was on a foreign policy dispute that he had with Democrats in particular over that law that this Congress passed that allowed families of 9/11 victims to sue the government of Saudi Arabia. The White House did not want that to happen. They thought it would be bad for U.S.-Saudi relations. The president vetoed that. They had a vote, I think it was in the Senate, to override, and it failed. That would what we would expect to happen here. So, again, it doesn't change the national emergency. Of course, you already have the 13 states who have sued to block this national emergency. There is a suggestion that if the president vetoes this resolution, then the next course of action for the House of Representatives could be to file a lawsuit of their own as well to try and block this resolution. So I don't think that the conversation over the president's authority here is ending with a simple veto if it comes to that. I do think that you're going to see legal challenges. You could potentially see Congress as well, although they have not talked about doing this yet, maybe try and rein in the legislation that the president's citing, the National Emergencies Act from the 1970s, to maybe clarify the language about what is and is not an appropriate use of that power of the presidency.
Oh, the joys of divided government.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that what's noteworthy here is that you're going to have a Democratic-controlled House who has passed this, and it looks like potentially a Republican-controlled Senate passed this as well. This gets at the heart of not so much Republican-Democrat, but what it means to be president and what it means to be a senator. And you saw that in the op-ed piece that, for instance, Tom Tillis, the Republican of North Carolina, wrote, who, by the way, is one of the president's strongest allies in the United States Senate, but writing in the Washington Post that if he were president, he probably would do exactly what President Trump did, but he's not. He's a U.S. senator, and he has an obligation to the Article I branch of government, not the Article II branch of government. And so that's a big part of this. I'll say this, too. The other big thing about this that is creating a bipartisan wedge is the $3.5 billion that the president intends to take from military construction. That's part of the executive authority that he's using here to get wall money, is money from military construction, MILCON as it's called. No senator that I have spoken to has seen a list yet of the projects that could potentially be impacted by that funding decision. boy, you want to ruffle feathers both amongst Republicans and Democrats. Tell them that a project in their home state or their home district is going to be impacted by this. That's a big part of this as well. Yes, there are separation of powers concerns that Republicans have expressed. There is another concern about, is this going to adversely impact funding in my district, in my state?
Jared Halpern, what is it? What is that? Jacksonville. I don't want to get the call letters wrong.
My WOKV.
I was going to say, yeah, I had it wrong, so I'm glad I went to you. They would be very proud of what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Take care, sir.
All right.
Our great friend Jared Halpern joining us. Let's get to your phone calls. Pro-Life joins us. Thank you for your patience. You're on the air, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, you know, the boys from Tanzania. Tanzania is 35% Islamic, and so we don't know if they're Islamic or not, but the Islamic culture is not compatible with our culture, with our laws, or with anything. And a state should have the right to say, and Idaho could do this, they could say, listen, we're going to screen everybody that comes from a refugee, people coming from other places, if we're not going to let them come here. Now, you know, that's a real controversial thing to say, but that's what needs to be happen in a state, and we just tell the federal government, listen, we don't care what you're saying about this, we're for protecting our citizens. Now, the girl was really wrong, and God's law is the foundation for man's law. If we had laws against fornication, then she'd be in trouble because she invited it.
Now, let's jump into this for a minute. What do you mean laws against fornication? For people that are just tuning in, we're talking about the judge denying the CUNA rape suspects' request for lowering their bond. They are refugees from Tanzania.
Right.
And the victim, 18 years old, we don't know if she's a refugee. Somebody asked me that earlier. She met this guy, one of them, Lamado Bello or something like that, met him on Snapchat. They had relations. According to the prosecutor, she said no, kept going, and then some others joined this alleged crime. So laws against fornication, how would that work?
Well, I mean, you just couldn't go out and have open fornication, you know, like on Snapchat. If some policeman saw that you were, you know, trying to pick up somebody on social media, they would come over and talk to you about it, and if they'd give you a ticket. That's how it ought to be.
So you get a citation for fornication.
Right. There would be some way of tamping it
down.
Now,
this is what I love about you, because we can have fun with it, but you're very serious. You've already revealed that there is such a thing called the gay police. So would you be in favor of establishing, and you're not a big fan of government, the fornication police?
Well, of course. I mean, we all have to be fornication police. We have to try to keep our children from engaging in wrongful sex, our spouses, our associates. I mean, if I'm an employer, am I going to let my employees, the people that I associate with, fornicate? No, I'll fire them. You know what I'm saying?
But there would be a legal way to fornicate and a illegal way to fornicate, right?
No, in God's law, there shouldn't be any way.
Well, if there's not a proper way to fornicate, we wouldn't be around, would we?
Well, of course, but you have to have a committed relationship.
I would say you'd have to be married before you could engage in that activity.
Right.
Would you agree with that? So anybody that is engaging in these actions outside of marriage, they would be subject to fines, levies, and possible imprisonment.
Right, but
by the fornication police.
Yeah, I know. That's the way it should be. But we're so far away from that, it's ridiculous. But we don't even fire them, shun them, tell them they're wrong, ask them to repent. I mean, just on a personal basis, outside of civil law. I mean, we just say anything goes. So
X's and O's here, and we're not talking about kisses and hugs. 15 seconds, your thoughts on the alleged gang rape in CUNA.
Well, I don't know the whole thing about it, but here's what's strange. We need some reporters. I don't have time to go dig into it, but maybe some of our listeners could go and ask a few questions and find out who the girl's name is and go and ask her associates, what kind of girl is this, and find the boys' families and whatever, talk to them, and write up some kind of a story. That's what needs to happen.
Fair enough, Pro-Life. Thank you for the call.
All right.
We continue on. Let's go to Tess in Boise with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Tess.
Hi, good morning. Hey, I'll tell you what disturbs me most. I love all the issues that we're talking about today here, but I'm always distressed when people say, I feel bad about saying something. And, this is in regards to saying something to the refugees. And
the young man who called in and said he felt bad because he thinks the refugees are taking over.
Well, the thing is that here's one thing that I do. So if you're concerned about something like the refugees, go look at the jail rosters for a lot of the different communities and see how many are sitting in jail right now. But I think one thing, whether it's in regards to the refugees, whether it's in regards to your developers, where's the forward thinking on this? And one way that I look at it is that, how much am I in somebody's tornado? Because the tornado is not just the center, the calm part. We're all in somebody's tornado. We're in the rain, we're in the hail, we're in the wind. And if you don't look and see where you're at in that tornado, you don't know how you're going to be affected. And if you don't know how you're going to be affected, it's usually because you've been brainwashed. And thank you to the media and thank you to our educational system because of that. So people have never been taught to speak their piece. So don't just think it, say it. Because when I see somebody doing something, I'm going to say, don't do that, because I don't want to have to come and risk my life to rescue you for your bad decisions. It's okay to say that.
Sure. Now back to the point, Tess. Back to the point, though, of this situation in Kuna. Your thoughts?
No, they need to give no bail for them, because I would think that they would probably run. And I'm kind of the thought that, any kind of infraction, whether this is a horrendous felony, even misdemeanors, that you need to go. You need to go. That's all there is to it. Because people who want to assimilate here, don't act like that, and you don't notice them. So, yeah, I have pretty strong feelings about whether you're illegals, whether you're refugees, whether you're immigrants. You meet them from both sides. But if you're part of that group, the refugee or immigrant group, and you commit any crime, you need to be pitched. Pretty basic.
Tess,
now they're in my tornado.
Thank you for the call, and worried about the tornadoes and the hurricanes and the hailstorms. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Holly in Caldwell joins us now, 107.5 FM, 580 AM with Kevin Miller. Hello, Holly.
Good morning. I really like Tess. She's a smart girl. I would have to say that anytime we have laws that are trying to regulate groups is a democracy. And as we know, we're in a republic, which many people don't know that. And so even though Marcy's law has given us a bone to try to change that a little bit, I still am researching that. But I would have to say we don't need to amend our Constitution. We need to go ahead and look at Growing Freedom Idaho and Christy Zitto and Heather Scott and Priscilla Giddings and the bill that they proposed for victims, because anytime you amend your Constitution for group rights, what else would it be next? What group is next? And so we are a republic. The Bill of Rights and the Constitution protect the rights of individuals, and they're using a soft spot to try to get the public to be confused about what that is. Almost much what happened with Prop 2, when people didn't really look at the issues, didn't realize there really wasn't funding, and, it sounds good for everybody to have coverage when there really is no plan. And so I just encourage people that anytime they see something that wants to amend the Constitution is a terrible idea, especially given the climate that we're in, and that they should look to
Sure, but we're talking about the Kuna rape. We're not talking about Marcy's law here.
Well, I'm a deep thinker, so I was thinking about that too, and thinking about.
I know, and you were so good. You were so good at it. It took me a minute and a half to figure out you weren't on topic. But yes, and that's why I love you.
I am on topic because I was thinking about it. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you a lot. And I honestly, when I called in, I was thinking. I called in when the guy was saying, "Hey, we need to have laws." So
sure,
that's illegal. But honestly, you can't regulate morality. And even if you make a law, we don't want to be a communist state, so we don't need a zillion laws and every tiny thing we can think of. We need to start teaching our kids in our homes and our schools, and we need to get rid of the lunacy in this country. But where can we begin? I don't know.
One more point back to Marsy's Law. What do you think the lesson is of this? And do you think that the establishment folks will finally get it, that you can't throw something together without getting the endorsement of the people?
I don't know if they'll get it or not, because this is a nationwide push to amend every state constitution, including the U.S. Constitution. And not just, this isn't the Convention of States. This is another backdoor way with Marsy's Law. It's highly funded from out of state. It's a glossy thing. It's on a subject that's supposedly about victims, and it's not. And so it's really another, the backdoor thing to the guns and other ways to take away individual liberty. And so, honestly, I hope that the voters can become more informed. That's why I speak out. That's why so many others do. Even though we don't know everything, we know that we have to say something. And honestly, until we get them to shut down some of these big pharma lobbies and all those types of things, the voice of the people is really in jeopardy.
Holly, thank you for the call. Let's go to Mark and Eagle with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Kevin. I sure hope you can get Craig Pruitt on next week from the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance to talk about this Marsy's Law and how onerous it can be if they try to pass it in its present form. I'm calling about another topic here. And by the way, as far as those boys from CUNA, let the Europeans have them. Ship them back to their country. If not, ship them over to the Europeans over there. They seem to love to absorb all that mess over there. I sent you an email about the House Bill 127. There is apparently something going on here in this state by House Committee Representative John Green, I think out of Pocatello, I'm not sure, but wants to basically assert LULUPA laws here, which has to do with private property rights here. And, you mentioned Chad Christensen in the other story, but I just saw on the Internet here a TetonValleyAdvocates.org news events letter of opposition to HB 127, and it's addressed to Mark Gibbs, representative, and Representative Chad Christensen. It basically what is going on here, and I hope you'll see the email, because Shelley Brock, who was involved with KEA in protecting the city of Eagle here and the surrounding areas, along with Fruitland, from the oil and gas exploration in your backyard, this basically would assert it. This guy basically wants to repeal the LULUPA laws, which give people their rights to say what they can do on their own private property. She works as a surgery in St. Al's, and it's hard for her to talk with you in the morning. Is there a way I can give Ray her phone number or email it to you where she could maybe do an interview and it could be taped and put on in the morning show? Because this is very important to Idahoans.
Well, if she would like to contact us, we'll do that.
Well, no, she said it was all right to get a hold of. I'm not going to give her cell phone number off over the phone here, but
no, I know.
Just email it to you?
Yeah, please do.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, and you have a good weekend.
All right, Mark. Thank you very much. Back to the topic at hand. Neil in Fruitland talking about the CUNA alleged rape with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Neil. Thank you for your patience.
Hey, Kevin, the pro-life's gone off his rocker with his idea that we're going to use social media to stop fornication. I just couldn't stand it when I heard him say that.
Well, look, I'm all about the fornication police. I'm looking to deputize people, and we're going to get that started.
That sounds like a plan, man.
Well, your thoughts on what's going on in CUNA?
Well, I think that's a lot more complicated than people think it is.
I would agree.
But I'm with some of the callers that think we need to pay a lot more attention to the difference between their culture and our culture, and I think we need to be really careful or we're going to live to regret it, just like they have in Europe.
Great point, Neil. Thank you for calling in. You have a great day.
Thank you.
All right. Quickly, we'll squeeze in Jim from Meridian with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Jim.
Hey, Kevin. How you doing?
Not bad, sir. We don't have a lot of time, but it's yours.
Seems like I always get right at the tail end. I just want to, comment. I think a couple of things have already been said, about these boys over there in CUNA. If it's all right, I'd just like to quote John Adams. John Adams said, "Our Constitution will only work with a moral, religious, will work with no other form of government." Problem that I'm seeing here in America today is we've pretty much, made immorality and this kind of stuff, acceptable. And then when, we've taken God out of schools, we've, taught evolution, abortion on demand, human right, humans have no real value. And then you bring in a culture that is basically, Islam is nothing but a Stone Age death cult. They worship the moon god that Abraham's father worshipped. I started talking a little bit about Islam yesterday with you, before God called him out of Ur of the Chaldees. And so, there's no assimilation. Islam does not want to coexist. They want to dominate. And that's what people have to understand. And their culture allows this stuff. As I said yesterday, their prime model is Muhammad. He is the perfect example. Well, Muhammad was a rapist. Muhammad, beheaded people. He murdered people. And so when you bring people in that are birthed and raised up in an ideology where everything exists, for them, they're the ones that have the superior doctrine. They have the superior beliefs.
Yep, Jim, I got to run. I apologize. More coming up. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.